Welcome, friends. We have another exciting episode today because of these Epstein files. I almost fell off my chair again, just like yesterday. You see these international revelations from time to time reveals a lot about India's government's internal workings. We don't get because our media is so controlled by the government and so craven that we don't get insights into what actually is going on. And from time to time, there are things which give us deep insight. If you remember, there was the Pegasus scandal of spyware being put in order to monitor people's phones. This was broken abroad by various newspapers, and we got to know that a lot of our citizens were also on that list, thanks to our home ministry and government top level. We got a similar insight when Francois Hollande told us that it was the Indian government which insisted on Anil Ambani, the businessman, being made the offset partner, 50% offset partner for the purchase of Rafale fighter jets from France. Similarly, we got an insight when Adani was indicted by the Securities and Exchange Commission in the US in a civil case and by the Department of Justice in a criminal case. Otherwise, we had no idea what was going on. It was a $265 million bribery allegation for a solar project with the government of India, but for which he had misled fraudulently US investors. That's the allegation. Similarly, when WikiLeaks happened, we got to know some things. It was the same thing with Panama Papers about foreign offshore bank accounts for many of our top celebrities and politicians. So these are moments of insight. Similarly, there are some immense insights in these Epstein emails. So Epstein, apart from being a pedophile and a sex trafficker, as you know, he was also a kind of a broker, wheeler dealer. And he had already been convicted in 2008 for for having sex with a child underage, 13-year-old, which is considered statutory rape, actually, and for trafficking women, soliciting prostitution in Florida. But he had gotten away with a light sentence in that case. But still, people were in touch with him. So today's batch of emails is very interesting because unlike yesterday's, it reveals the exchanges between Anil Ambani, this businessman that I was speaking of, and Epstein. And Ambani is acting as a kind of representative of the Prime Minister of India, Prime Minister Modi. Epstein is writing to Steve Bannon that Modi also thinks of China as an enemy, like you. So he's on the same page as you, basically, and of Pakistan as its proxy in the region. Whereas what we hear from the domestic rhetoric and the domestic line of the government and also its MEA line is that, Pakistan is our real enemy and maybe it helps the Hindu-Muslim narrative for elections domestically. And against China, we never openly say that it is the enemy. And in fact mentions that it would we would like it to be stopped, that the Prime Minister would like it stopped. So what does that mean? That means already as early as these emails, 2019 or so. Remember, Doklam had happened in 2017. That was a confrontation between India and China on Doklam in Bhutan. And 2020 is when the Galwan clash happens on our border. By 2019, India had firmly determined that the real problem is China. That means. So it's very revealing. And the second aspect, which I found quite, fascinating, was that he mentions in one of his other emails, Anil Ambani, that, Modi is going to visit Washington and he would like some leverage introductions because no one talks to Modi in Washington. Now, the impression that we get is that, Our Prime Minister is the Vishwa Guru who everybody wants to talk to. But it appears that Anil Ambani is asking for himself also for meetings with Jared Kushner and Steve Bannon. And Epstein is saying that he'll arrange them because at this time, Steve Bannon was not in government, but was still influential in MAGA circles. And Kushner, Jared Kushner, was quite influential in the first Trump administration, along with his wife. Even now, Kushner is still envoy for the Middle East, and even with the Russia-Ukraine peace talks, he's part of Witkoff's. They work as a duo, so he's still important. And now we can begin to understand the third point. Why did Epstein say that my advice worked and the Indian Prime Minister Modi sang and danced for the benefit of the US president, and it worked? It means that the Prime Minister had to go an extra mile to ingratiate himself both to the Israeli leaders and to the US president, most importantly. And there's a reason for it. I had hinted at it. I said, look, we had good relations with Israel right from Narasimha Rao's time when he was the prime minister. We were importing all kinds of weapon systems, electronic warfare, intelligence gathering. There was exchange of intelligence also. In fact, it had gone earlier, even in Rajiv Gandhi's time. There had been some intelligence exchanges, and even in Indira Gandhi's times, there had been some give and take. But from Narasimha Rao's time, it was done officially, openly, and on a large scale. So why the need to ingratiate? And I had mentioned that part of it is the Hindutva ideology. They perceive Israelis to have some common ideology with them of Muslim hatred, which I don't think is right, because Zionism is not based on Muslim hatred. It's based morely on displacing Palestinians and Arabs around. So it's more specifically regionally, ethnically targeted ideology. But it appears that there is not much purchase for the Prime Minister in Washington, and he needs the help of such lobbyists like Mr. Epstein, who was already long convicted. The third point is very interesting. He says, Epstein says, I don't understand a lot about politics, and I'm therefore acting only as a conduit. But Modi's visit is part of the Israel strategy for the US. That is very interesting. That means that not only Israel has, through its Zionist lobby in DC and APEC and all of that, Jewish funders, a tremendous control over Middle East policy, but it means that Israel also has quite a bit of impact on US-India policy. And in a way, Modi was trying to quote the US via Israel. Epstein is saying in the email that Modi's visit is seen as part of Israel strategy. So what Israel strategy is this for the US is not clear. Could be many things. Could be developing India as a strategic ally like UAE for the Israelis further, so that Israelis have more allies in the region. Could be that we want to develop this corridor because they were quite focused on combating China's BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, or OBOR, One Belt, One Road Initiative. And they were trying to create this path from India to UAE and via Saudi Arabia to Israel, etc., to Europe. Not clear how India is part of this strategy. So quite a few fascinating insights. And the last is that Bannon says that, look, there is a limit to the Buy India strategy. That is, he says that you can buy some IT stuff, and maybe we can do some jet engines, and that's about it. And Americans prefer to deal with the Indian private sector because the government is perceived as very corrupt and the private sector is perceived as less. So this feeling is widespread. I mean, we know the reality in India, but that this feeling is widespread in the US was, a surprise to me. So quite a few interesting surprises about how the government thinks and what's going on internally. Of course, Anil Ambani goes on to meet him at his residence, at Epstein's residence. And even another Indian minister, Hardeep Singh Puri, who at that time was not a minister, but he visits Epstein's New York home thrice during this period. So, so there was more than one Indian contact for sure, Indian government contact. And Steve Bannon also, in reply, tells Epstein that yes, I'm going with a few Hindu Americans for a event, 1 hour event on India, which will project Modi somewhere in Central Asia. I forget which place, Kazakhstan or someplace it's happening. So Bannon is also interested in meeting, and Epstein tries to arrange a meeting. It's not clear whether the meeting actually happened, but he tries to arrange a meeting between Bannon and Modi. So quite a lot of detail, and one realizes how carefully the Prime Minister's foreign image has been built up so that it will pay domestic political dividends. I'd explained yesterday how people have in fact voted for the Prime Minister. Even I shared a moving story about how I was also moved by a daily wage laborer who had been destroyed by the Prime Minister's demonetization schemes and GST imposition, haphazard GST imposition. But he still wanted to vote in 2019 for Prime Minister because he said that he has made our country great. We have achieved great status. In fact, I was moved because the man had been destroyed in a certain way, but he believed in this. I was touched by his emotion. Similarly, another person I met a couple of years ago, he said to me that, obviously we have become great because the G20 meeting is taking place in our country. And when I told him that it was a rotational, it was it was hosted by each member every year, and everybody's turn came by rotation. He disputed it. He said to me, "No, why hadn't it happened before? During the Congress era." So I had to tell him that this G20 is not very old. The grouping itself is quite recent. So it didn't exist like 20 years ago. So that's part of the image, and how it's built up is now clear to all of us. We've been seeing it for the last 12, 13 years. A lot of good PR firms were hired in the US, top firms. And these firms helped change the image of the Prime Minister when he was Chief Minister of Gujarat itself, as a development oriented Chief Minister. Earlier, he had not been even given US visas. I mean, the US government and State Department had denied him a visa because they had considered him complicit in the 2002 Gujarat massacres of Muslims. So the whole narrative changed, partly due to these PR agencies and partly and due to the fact that he occupied the highest office of Prime Minister, which many countries then make an exception for and allow the head of state to operate. Of course, in the case of Netanyahu, that's not working because he's been indicted by the International Criminal Courts, Court of Justice. And he can't visit many countries now, not even fly over their airspace. He risks getting arrested. And that's all for today, my friends. I'll bring you with some more breaking news as soon as I can. I think there are more secrets yet to tumble out of Epstein's documents and, what should I say, his Pandora's box. Thank you. Keep watching.